I'll marry her to my son if she can dance a waltz as poorly as you serve." Laughter erupted, sharp and mocking from the guests. The Thompson mansion stood as a monument to wealth on Manhattan's Upper East Side, its marble facade glowing under the September moonlight of 2025. Inside, the grand ballroom dazzled with opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across gold-trimmed walls, and the air carried the delicate scent of orchids mingling with vintage champagne. The annual gala of Thompson Holdings, a titan in real estate and tech, drew New York's elite. CEOs in bespoke tuxedos, socialites draped in shimmering couture, and influencers capturing every moment for their millions of followers on X. At the heart of this glittering spectacle stood William Thompson III, a billionaire whose sharp wit and sharper cruelty made him both feared and revered. Beside him was his son, James, 28, his chestnut hair neatly combed, his hazel eyes shadowed with a quiet sorrow. James was the reluctant heir to the Thompson empire. 2 years earlier, his mother, Eleanor, had succumbed to a sudden illness, leaving a void that James couldn't fill. Eleanor had been the family's warmth, a former dancer who taught James to waltz in their sunlit living room, her laughter echoing through his childhood. Now, under his father's iron grip, James felt like a pawn in a game of power. William used the gala, attended by 300 guests, to showcase James as the future of his legacy. But tonight, he had a darker motive, a cruel spectacle to assert his dominance. The guests, sipping cocktails and exchanging pleasantries, were unwitting spectators to his plan, their chatter a low hum beneath the clink of crystal. Keisha Williams, 32, moved through the crowd like a shadow, her tray of champagne flutes balanced with practiced precision. Her dark skin glistened faintly under the chandelier's light, her eyes sharp despite the ache in her feet from hours in worn-out shoes. But Keisha carried a secret, guarded like a fragile heirloom. In her youth, she'd been a ballroom dance champion, her name once celebrated in dance halls from Harlem to Miami. Life, however, had other plans, forcing her to trade sequins for aprons, her dreams buried under the weight of survival. As Keisha navigated the crowd, her foot caught on the edge of a Persian rug, its intricate patterns mocking her misstep. The tray tipped, and crystal flutes shattered across the marble floor, the crash slicing through the ballroom's hum like a gunshot. The room fell silent, every eye on her. William's lips curled into a sneer. "Clumsy girl," he said, his voice dripping with disdain, loud enough to reach the farthest corners of the ballroom. "I'll marry her to my son if she can dance a waltz as poorly as you serve." Laughter erupted, sharp and mocking from the guests, their amusement a blade against Keisha's pride. James flinched, his jaw tight, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment at his father's cruelty. Keisha's face burned, her hands trembling as she knelt to gather the shards, the broken glass glinting like her fractured dreams. But deep within, a spark of defiance flickered, a whisper of the dancer she used to be. William, emboldened by the crowd's laughter, leaned into his cruelty, his eyes gleaming with malice. "I'm serious," he declared, his voice booming over the murmurs, commanding attention. "Dance a waltz right here, right now, and James is yours. Prove you're more than a maid." The guests tittered, some whispering bets, others pulling out phones to record what they assumed would be a humiliating spectacle. Their laughter echoed off the gilded walls, each chuckle a reminder of Keisha's place in their world, or so they thought. She stood frozen, the weight of their stares pressing down like a physical force, her heart pounding in her chest. She could walk away, retreat to the kitchen, and return to her invisible life, her head bowed as always. But the years of swallowing insults, of hiding her past, had built a quiet rage within her. Tonight, that rage found a voice. "I'll do it," Keisha said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach, her words cutting through the murmurs like a blade. The room gasped, a collective intake of breath that seemed to suck the air from the space. William's smirk faltered for a split second, his eyes narrowing, before he recovered. "You?" he scoffed, crossing his arms, his tailored suit creasing slightly. "Fine, impress us." He gestured to the orchestra, a 12-piece ensemble tucked in the corner, their instruments gleaming under the soft lights. The conductor nodded, and the opening notes of Johann Strauss II's Blue Danube, a Viennese waltz both elegant and demanding, filled the air, its lilting melody a challenge in itself. James stepped forward, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity, his polished shoes clicking softly on the marble. "You don't have to do this," he whispered, his hazel eyes searching hers, his voice low and earnest. Kesha met his gaze, her chin lifting, her resolve hardening. "I want to," she said, her tone firm, a quiet fire in her words. She shed her apron, letting it fall to the floor like a discarded skin, revealing the simple black dress beneath. It wasn't a ball gown, but its clean lines hugged her frame, hinting at the strength beneath her unassuming exterior. The crowd murmured, some mocking her audacity, others intrigued by her boldness, their whispers a mix of scorn and curiosity. Kesha took James's hand, her grip firm, her pulse racing. She hadn't danced competitively in over a decade, but the rhythm of the waltz was etched into her bones. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the music, letting it awaken the dancer within, her heart syncing with the 1-2-3 beat. The music swelled, and Kesha stepped into the waltz, her body instinctively finding the 1-2-3 rhythm. Her first steps were tentative, testing the polished marble floor, its cool surface, a contrast to the warmth of her resolve. But as the melody unfolded, her confidence surged, her movements growing bolder. She led James into a closed hold, her posture regal, her frame steady, her shoulders squared like a queen reclaiming her throne. The crowd's laughter faded, replaced by stunned silence, their eyes wide as they watched. This was no amateur fumbling through steps. Kesha moved with the precision of a seasoned dancer, her feet gliding effortlessly, her body flowing like water. James, trained in ballroom for high society events, matched her rhythm, his initial hesitation giving way to admiration, his movement syncing with hers like a partner rediscovering a forgotten dance. Kesha's mind twisted as she danced, memories flooding back like a vivid film playing behind her eyes. At 16, she'd been a prodigy at the Harlem Dance Academy, her name plastered on local papers after winning national ballroom competitions. Her mother, Loretta, a seamstress who worked late into the night, had sewn her costumes, sparkling gowns of sapphire, crimson, and emerald that made Kesha feel invincible. They dreamed of her performing on global stages, perhaps teaching at Juilliard, or opening her own studio. Kesha's trophies lined their small apartment, each one a testament to her talent, a promise of a brighter future. She remembered the thrill of competitions, the roar of crowds, the weight of gold medals around her neck. But at 18, Loretta was diagnosed with breast cancer, and Kesha's world shattered. She dropped out of the academy to care for her mother, working as a cashier, then a waitress to pay mounting medical bills. Nights were spent at Loretta's bedside, reading dance magazines to keep her spirits up, their dreams whispered in the dark. When Loretta passed, Kesha was 21, drowning in debt and grief, her dance shoes packed away. The dance world moved on, and Kesha, now cleaning houses to survive, buried her dreams in a storage unit with her trophies, their shine dulled by dust. Now, in the Thompson Ballroom, those dreams roared back to life. Each step was a rebellion against the years of being overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. She executed a perfect natural turn, her dress flaring as she spun, the fabric catching the light like a fleeting spark. She guided James into a reverse flecro, their movements synchronized like a single breath, their connection electric. The crowd watched, mesmerized, their earlier scorn forgotten. Socialites who'd scoffed minutes earlier now leaned forward, captivated, their diamond necklaces glinting as they craned their necks. Influencers stopped recording to stare, their phones forgotten, their faces reflecting awe. William's face darkened, his plan unraveling before his eyes. This wasn't the clumsy maid he'd mocked. This was a master, a force he hadn't anticipated. James, sensing her skill, pushed himself to keep up, his own training shining through, his movements polished, yet infused with newfound energy. He led her into a dip, her back arching gracefully, her eyes locked on his, a silent conversation passing between them. "You're incredible," he whispered, barely audible over the music, his voice warm with admiration. Kesha's lips twitched into a small smile, but she didn't break focus, her eyes burning with determination. The music built to a crescendo, and she launched into a series of intricate steps, a promenade, a chassé, then a daring outside spin that drew gasps from the crowd. She wove through the patterns with ease, her body telling a story of resilience, grace, and defiance. As the final notes of Blue Danube rang out, she ended with a deep curtsy, her chest heaving, her body alive with adrenaline. The ballroom was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in thunderous applause, a wave that shook the chandeliers, the sound reverberating through the gilded walls. Kesha stood tall, her breath steadying, her eyes bright with a fire she hadn't felt in years, her body still humming with the rhythm of the waltz. James, still holding her hand, grinned, his face alight with genuine awe, his fingers warm against hers. "Where did you learn to dance like that?" he asked, loud enough for those nearby to hear, his voice carrying a mix of curiosity and respect. Kesha hesitated, the weight of her past pressing against her, the memories of her mother and her lost dreams heavy in her chest. And, with a quiet strength, she spoke. "I was a champion once. Life took me somewhere else." Her voice was soft but clear, carrying a truth that silenced the whispers, each word a reclaiming of her identity. The guests buzzed, some pulling out their phones to search her name on X, their fingers tapping frantically. Within seconds, old articles surfaced. Keisha Williams, rising star of ballroom dance. Harlem prodigy wins national title at 16. A woman in the crowd, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun, pushed forward, her eyes wide with recognition. It was Madame Dubois, Keisha's former coach from the Harlem Dance Academy, now a respected figure in New York's dance scene. "I knew it was her," she said, her voice trembling with pride, her hands clasped tightly. Keisha was unbeatable, a prodigy who could have gone global, who lit up every stage she touched. The room shifted, respect replacing ridicule, the guests' murmurs turning to nods of admiration. Keisha's story spread like wildfire across the ballroom, her past no longer a secret, but a badge of honor. William's jaw tightened, his hands clenched at his sides, his tailored suit suddenly seeming too tight. He'd meant to humiliate her, to cement his power, but she'd stolen the night, turning his game into her triumph. He tried to regain control, his voice cutting through the applause. "A stunt," he muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear, his tone venomous. "Doesn't change who she is. A maid." The word hung in the air, sharp and ugly, but it lacked the power it once held. James, his patience spent, stepped forward, his voice firm, his eyes blazing with a defiance his father hadn't seen before. "It changes everything, Father. It's not about wealth or status. It's about heart, talent, and courage. Things you've forgotten." His words cut through the room, and the crowd murmured in agreement, some nodding, others whispering about William's cruelty. For the first time, William looked small, his authority crumbling under the weight of his son's defiance and Keisha's undeniable brilliance. James turned to Keisha, his hand still in hers, his grip gentle but steady. "I don't know if we'll marry," he said, a shy smile breaking through, his voice warm with sincerity. "But I know extraordinary when I see it. Keisha, you're a force." The crowd cheered, their applause louder than before, a roaring wave that drowned out William's protests, shaking the very walls of the mansion. Keisha's eyes glistened, not with tears, but with pride, a quiet triumph that lit her from within. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a maid, but as the woman she'd always been, the dancer she'd never stopped being, her heart soaring with the weight of her reclaimed identity. In the weeks that followed, Keisha's story exploded on X and beyond. Clips of her waltz going viral, amassing millions of views, comments flooding with admiration, offers poured in, interviews with dance magazines, sponsorships from fashion brands, and a teaching position from Madame Dubois at a prestigious dance academy. me. James, breaking free from his father's shadow, sought Keisha out, not as a romantic suitor, but as a partner in purpose. He invested in her dream, a dance studio in Harlem for kids like her who had been overlooked, their potential buried under society's labels. They named it Loretta's Legacy, after her mother, its walls lined with Keisha's old trophies and new hopes, its floors alive with the sound of young dancers' footsteps. Keisha's studio became a beacon, drawing children from across the city, their eyes bright with dreams. She taught them not just to dance, but to believe in themselves, to rise above the labels pinned on them by a world quick to judge. James, finding solace in this work, began to heal from his mother's loss, his grief easing as he built something meaningful, his mother's love for dance echoing in every class. William, humbled by the public backlash and his son's independence, retreated from the spotlight, his empire feeling hollow without James's loyalty or the respect he'd taken for granted. The Thompson Mansion, once a symbol of exclusivity, became a place where dreams were reborn, its doors open to Keisha's students for annual showcases. Keisha's waltz wasn't just a dance, it was a revolution. She'd faced a room of skeptics and turned their mockery into awe, her steps a testament to resilience, talent, and an unyielding spirit. Her story inspired millions, from Harlem to Hollywood, proving that worth isn't measured by wealth or status, but by the fire within, the courage to rise again. As she taught her students, Keisha often thought of that night, the moment she reclaimed her light, the music still echoing in her soul. She danced on, not for applause, but for herself, and for every dreamer told their place was in the shadows, her steps a promise that they too could shine.